Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of the Wild User Interviews podcast with me, AVB. Today I am honored to have with me a human guest. I suspect soon we will be having AI agents as guests. Today with me is Nick Havryliak, co-founder at Assisterr. Did I pronounce that right?
Sounds very good too. Sound as a native Ukrainian.
I get that sometimes. If you go throaty, you can be a native a lot of languages. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks for inviting me. Really a pleasure to join you. And I hope this podcast will be interesting for people who are going to be watching us, to give them, first of all, good mood and a little bit perception about what we're building in the Assisterr. And in general, it would be great to get exposure to people who are watching you and share the ideas that we have at our team.
AI is certainly getting really hot and really trendy. I think that people are definitely trying to understand why AI and Web3, why AI in general. Like, it's those things that you start hearing the noise. At some point, there's like an inflection point, and then they start to grasp for any source of information. I really like you guys because you've been working on this since before it was cool, and you've been having a lot of growth in recent months. So whatever it is that you were doing before, it seems to be tapping into those hot sources of action. But before we get started, that's a bit of a warmer. Do you remember how we met in person?
Oh man, I believe it was either at NearCon or NearCon even a year ago. But I think one of these events was the place where we met, I believe.
It was definitely a NearCon. It was definitely a NearCon. The one that I remember at least is the most recent one, 2023. But do you have any more context? Like, give me some details.
I remember we were competing to pitch actually from the main stage and get to the list of top 10 teams who are going to be pitching. And I remember that you was also participating. There was some miscommunication where you was not sure, all the orgs were not sure if you would be pitching or not. And then we got initial message was like, hey guys, you are on 11 position, so we are not sure if you will get in. And then next message, oh, one team is get out. So there is option for you to pick. So we're getting into top 10. But in fact, you was also there. And later you told me that you was that like miscommunicated teams that didn't approve their participation on time, but then you will join later. Am I right?
I mean, that is technically correct. Yeah, one of us was the 11th team for sure. I think that the planets aligned and I was busy on the presentation, so I didn't reply. So you got in, but I was still in, and I think it was beautiful. I think it was a great way to allow more teams to get on stage and break the rule. It should be 10, now there's 11. But I actually do have a memory before that one. I remember arriving at the hacking venue late on the first day, and there was a party going on, an opening party, which was the strangest party in the world because it's a huge warehouse venue set up for hackers. There's literally just like a table with a lot of alcohol and a lot of really weird people that self-identify as hackers. And I have to say, I think that amongst the people that were there, not only were we the only two dancing, but we were the best at dancing as well. I made the mental note, I don't know what this guy is building, but if he can dance like that, it's probably some good shit.
I need to put a status in like building AI and then I love to dance, to be honest. And often, specifically on a bear market events, you can see that, first of all, there is no, let's say, there's a lot of guys, but maybe one or two girls in general. So that's the first problem of events for Web3 folk if you visit in. But also, like many guys, like they catching their beer, staying silently, or maybe chatting. They're like, what did you build? What did you build? But in fact, there are good vibes all the time, good people. So it makes sense to dance, makes sense to celebrate life, enjoy life, and so on. Really on vibes.
I love having these conversations because now I feel like the AIs will be indexing everything we say anyway, and they'll be learning from it. So if there is ever a dancing robot, we'll be teaching it how to dance. To me, music is very freeing because you basically got to get into the beat and your body starts to embody the beat and just go with the flow. It's like the sound waves kind of thing. And if you're drunk or high, it's easy. Like you become one with the music. And if there's more people also doing weird shit, then it's amazing because not only are you one with the music, but you're also one with the people. And in this case, it was really just you, me, and Joanna from your New York. But it was a great group of 3. No, just kidding. There were a handful more people. But I think that it shows that you are very much in tune with humanity, which is important because some people have concerns about AI and the machines taking over. So it's reassuring to me that the people working on AI are in tune with humanity. Also, I love your urban jungle. What's happening in that room? Are those real plants?
It's actually my kitchen. And
wow.
I have...
Do you grow your own food?
Like, I can show you my garden, but I'm not growing any fruits. It looks like this. It's pretty big, the jungle.
That's huge. Yeah. Nice.
Cambridge,
don't
UK.
dox yourself too hard, but...
Cambridge, UK.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. We got a unique sight of the sunny UK summer.
Well, like, it's very complicated to name it sunny and like summer, but yeah, people here call that it is summer.
Fair enough. It's I'm in Paraguay now, and it is technically winter, but we don't have winter. It's been like high 20s every day. It is what it is. That's beautiful. You should come visit.
Where I'm gonna go actually right now, exploring the opportunity to visit. My old dream was to move to Latin America, to some of these countries for 1 or 2 years and travel around. But then unfortunately war in Ukraine happened and all my plans with all this travel, many other things were broken. I hope next year there would be a time for relocation to some South America country, keep building the product where everything would be more stabilized, where the team would be bigger, the processes would be set up, and then I would have this opportunity to travel more in Latin America. But also I just discovered recently Asia. I was in Singapore presenting Assisterr. I was in Vietnam, Malaysia, and it's just amazing. There's so many things to do. So right now I'm trying to make a bet where I'm going to be. I do not know, but we already have the biggest community out from Asia region, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, huge amount of people right now in our community. So I would be definitely there often.
Congratulations, friend. You have discovered the digital nomad bug. I too place myself in a category where I have literally no idea where I'm going to be in the next 4 weeks. I just booked flights to Brussels very last minute, but I'm very excited to be attending ETHCC. And I just booked co-living in Bucharest, of all places, in Romania. So I'll be spending a few weeks there as well. I love Eastern Europe. It's just people very down to earth, hardworking. It's just nice. Obviously, if you go a bit too far east, a bit more complicated. Would love to visit too, but yeah, I hope that your travel plans are the worst thing to come out of the war, because I know it's a complex situation. But when you're ready, South America will be here, and yeah, let me know. I will be spending a lot more time in this region, so...
I will.
Now, let's get into the meat. I normally ask people how they got into the wonderful world of Web3. But in your case, it's going to be a double question. How did you get into the wonderful world of Web3? Or how did you get into the wonderful world of AI? Because this is a double session. We've got a Web3 and AI episode.
I can start from Web3 probably first, because I used to work in consulting as a product project manager. I was building R&D teams. I was building different products, managing up to 20 engineers who were executing, delivering product. And it was before 2017. So I had short period in my life where I was co-owner of an agency who was developing different applications, websites, mobile application, and so on. I sold it. Then I went to bigger consulting agency, one of the biggest actually in Europe. And it was an interesting period of my life because I learned a lot of things. I learned how to manage people, how to understand different and manage different risks related to software development. And then I switched to Web3 space because, first of all, pragmatically, it was at that period of time just interested to me, this whole concept of that you can own everything fully. No one can censor it. No one can take your money, and no one can take control over what you actually own. And it was pretty excited, pretty interested. I had some savings, I believe maybe $20,000, $25,000. I invested in my first Ethereum and another couple of crypto. it was a pretty cool period of time. I earned a lot initially, then I lost a lot. And it was like typical roller coaster with the first cycle. But then I started digging deeper. I was managing different products in Web3. We were doing different registers. One projects with Kyiv capital city. We were building a register for the land register, something like that. And then there was a lot of like on-chain Web3 native applications that we were also building. The latest role in Web3 was head of ecosystem growth at DAP Protocol, which was pretty interesting because in a very short period of time, we organized a lot of interesting things around the protocol. At the same time, it was a failure that brings me to think about like how we can actually establish correct and right and better relationship between developers and protocols, which was the initial thing how we started Assisterr. But as soon as between this experience at DAP Protocol, there was another experience with AI. So a friend of mine actually invited me to be CPO, lead R&D team, build R&D team that's in AI startup. So the approach was very pragmatical, how we can use AI technology to make two business functions. First, it's a sales function, and second, design function. We didn't call it generative AI or whatever else. It was the recommendation algorithm and also computer vision system that we were using to empower us to function and achieve high level of automation. We did super fast automation process R&D. We built product. Then I moved to US to open a representative company, hire a couple BD team. Everything was really good, but then the war happened. And one of my co-founders was from Russia, one from Spain. And I came back just 2 weeks before the war. I came back to Ukraine to handle my visa for my kids. I have 2 small kids. So I came back to Ukraine. We opened visa in the last day when the embassy was working. And after that, I made like fatality. I say like to my wife, like, let's stay here for another week. Let's check what happened. And after that, we make decision to move to US and keep working on the project. But then the war happened. And because of some tension inside, I make a decision to leave the company. So I sold my portion of the company. I left. Then I was volunteering for a couple of months, doing different things, end up in Cambridge, studied crypto and blockchain stuff. It was a course funded by National Bank of Ukraine, how to rebuild Ukraine by using cryptocurrency. And then I left, staying in UK, building another company. And that's here we are. In a very short overview.
Wow. That is a crazy story. I have to say, you look a good 10 years younger than you must be. Because I was like keeping tally of all the jobs, all the companies, like the level of seniority, how many times you moved countries, how many kids you have. You look fantastic. Are you doing like intermittent fasting or something?
No, I'm not. I think a little bit running. I was doing Thai boxing for probably 5 years. I was doing a lot of other things around sports. So sport was somewhere around in my life all the time. Plus, I'm a pretty chill person. I'm trying not to overstress and try to focus on what I love and avoid anything that I don't like. It's not always easy, but a life approach that helps me to save my nerve health.
It's amazing. I'm very much a biohacker, I'd say, in the making. I do have a soft spot for sugar and other drugs. Not kidding. Haha. But yeah, if I enjoy that overlap between Web3 and the sovereign individual and what could be more sovereign than your health and longevity. If there's anything that you want to share, let me know. But maybe from your very compressed, long journey, I'd like to pick up on a couple of things. The first one is what those origin of working for an outsourcing agency, both the initial attraction towards Web3 due to the discomfort with like central authorities. Because I think that both potentially map the timeline of Eastern Europe. You've got a region that is catching up technologically. And as I understand it, it starts offering a lot of great talent to the West. And now it's moving to having its own homegrown project. But also the history of the region would make people much more open to the message of Web3. So I'd be curious to see how your journey, if it identifies with that understanding that I have of the region or anything that you may want to add to that.
It's quite interesting because my youth age, let's say, when I was like student, post-student years, I was very active into NGOs, like non-government organization. We were organizing a lot of activities to fight against government. At the time, it was like the government of Yanukovych, our previous president. We were in a lot of protests. We had a lot of problems, official legal side of the country that treat us.
Was it sad?
Not at all. So basically, I was stopped many times by our SBU, which at that period of time, KGB or I don't know, special forces in Ukraine that were responsible how to prevent some like social tensions, revolutions, and so on. So they treat our organization like my own organization. We had almost 100 people at that period of time, and we were super active. So we were calculating at some point of time on a peak year, we did maybe 2 different events per week. So you can imagine how many like physical events. Some of them were like protests, some were some different cultural events. Like there were a lot of activities actually inside of organization. And also at that period of time, I had a media. So I had the biggest community, online community in our region, which gives me some power, like power to make some agenda, to create some agenda, to push some agenda. And that's why we had a lot of communication with police, with this like special securities and so on. And at some point of time, I remember there was a moment when my family started getting emails, not emails, but physical cards, like I'm running a bloody revolution. I'm gonna run a bloody revolution in Ukraine. And they need to talk to me.
Oh
and
my
it was
God.
like, you know.
And just for a bit of context, when you mention the former president, if my history knowledge doesn't betray me, the former president was Russia aligned, and then there was a change, and the current president is Western aligned. Is that correct?
There was like 2 times back, there was like Russian aligned, and then we just get a revolution. And he ran away to Russia, and he invites Putin.
The
like,
revolution was 2013, 2014.
Yes, and the war started.
I'm not saying it was you, but that's when you were active with the NGO.
No. Basically, we were working with many European and American agencies. They were educating us how to protect our rights, how to promote some things that's important for civil society. And it's not as important or low priority for people who are corrupted, who are in politics and so on. So I think we're doing a lot of valuable things in terms of how to bring some values to society. And it was productive at the period of time. But I'm trying to explain my original way of thinking. For me, that this type of things were highly important. My personal right, civil right, organization of people around you, when you don't need someone, a centralized entity who will tell you what to do, but you can just on a low level organize yourself and it should work. And these principles actually was very resonating with what I saw in a crypto community at that period of time. And right now I'm trying to rebuild the same approach actually in my organization, in Assisterr as well, in our organization. Because I don't want to have anyone who controls everything and like pushing everything and keeps motivating everyone, waking up and saying, oh, I need to tell that person what to do. I want to achieve at some point of time the state of mind of each member of the organization or member of the community, when everyone understands what they want to contribute, what they want to get out of there. And it would be my ideal scenario for both for Assisterr right now, but it was aimed for our organization back in days, 12 years actually, back in time. And yeah, that's where I was contributing. I was disappointed with how exactly the political system looks like from the inside. I was actively participating for maybe 2-3 years. I was assistant in this political society as soon as the revolution happened, and there was a lot of changes. But then I just found that it's not something that I want to do. I want to build something. I want to create. I want not to be limited by formal rules and not to be limited by the system, how it is. And especially if I don't believe that this system is something for better, but I think that this system is quite corrupted and it created to support the status quo, not to bring something new, people, new views, new opportunities to, not to the market, but like to the country, to the life.
Maybe random, but Have you come across the concept of the network state by Balaji?
Yeah, I really like it. It's something that as soon as I will achieve all goals with Assisterr that we have on our pipeline, on our roadmap, I think is that a huge vector where I would love to contribute. I have a lot of ideas. Last year, I was meeting in November in Netherlands at the big network state conference people there. And I really like the quality of the people there. So there's a lot of people who already established themselves on some life path. So they achieve something. And right now they understand that that's if you try to fit yourself to exist in society, to exist in organization, to exist in system, you at some point of time you see the limitation of the system. And it's not because, and in most cases you understand that the system was designed in one way. And right now the systems are supported by people who don't want to change anything. They just want to conserve this approach, the societies, this whatever happening. They have a lot of intention and have a lot of motivation to keep it as it is, because they already secured their money, status, businesses, families, and many other things. So that's where we need to innovate. That's where we need to innovate not only on the technological side, but also on a state side, and create some competition between states. And as soon as there would be commercial competition between states, that's where people like you, me, and many others, we can vote by our money, by our time, and by our resources, energy, smart brains, and so on. Okay, if we don't see that this system and this government or this region is good for us, we will take our money, taxes, whatever we're ready to contribute, and move just where we feel comfortable, where we see like-minded people. And that's the demand that I also have in my life all the time. But to be honest, I think many people have very similar, but it can be tricky, because when we think that many people think as we think, it's actually biased, because we think that other people are like we are, but for many people, actually, it can be not value. It can be actually something that like all these dummy people just imagining something or about something, while we need to work at a factory from 9 to 5, and that's true life. So I don't know. For me, it's a value. I'm going to be contributing to things.
We're very much aligned on that, but that's why I always enjoy digging a little bit deeper into where people come from, because you may both want the same thing or believe in the same thing, but you're really coming from a very different place. Too, when I was young, I was involved. I wasn't really organizing anything, but I did attend a lot of protests in Venezuela. It was a very turbulent time. I think I got out at just the right time, because it got really bad after that, like a bunch of dead students and imprisoned people and whatnot. But yeah, there was that feeling of frustration. It was almost like an unbearable feeling of unfairness. You could see how the corruption in the government would limit basically any opportunity or any idea that you had, because they were stealing all the money. And then even in different industries, if you look at medicine, there's a group of people, probably one family, that control all the import. So some medicine is not available, some medicine is very expensive. And if you wanted to set up a competing medicine manufacturing or importing business, no, you can't, because that vertical belongs to that group of people, and they're protected by either criminal organizations or the government. So it was that sense of the system being either outdated and just not designed to cope with new ideas and new opportunities, especially technology, or just a system being so corrupt that it's impossible to fix. So that eventually pushes me out to Australia and been there for 15 years. But where Web3 gets interesting to me is that we have two types of people. The ones that have experienced that frustration, but may not be as connected with the technology, and the people that are connected with the technology, but maybe have never experienced that frustration. I'm always trying to find a way to bridge the gap. Even if you look at the countries that you mentioned, where Assisterr is big, large countries, growing countries, Vietnam, etc. Most people are in Web3 for the opportunity to earn money. It's a way to improve their livelihood, which is obviously great. But I don't think that many people in those regions are as aligned as we may be on the values of Web3. They don't really, maybe, I wouldn't say that they don't care, but I don't think it's being presented to them as that type of opportunity. And honestly, many people in the West would not understand what it means to have a middleman block your opportunities. Maybe with COVID and with Robinhood, the meme stock, very recent example. We've been going for, 10 plus years in crypto. And very recently, some people were like, oh, whatever, I have to wear a mask outside. Like, very minor nuisance, which was still shit, but it was very minor.
And that's here is very right conversation, because very in line with what I was thinking about recently, because people in the West, they don't have most of the troubles that crypto design initial critiques. Or if they have, they don't feel it, because like I had a chat with a friend from London. He's in banking, like he's in finance and banking. I never had a problem and in UK, there was no problem over the last 100 years with bank system. Like, why do I need crypto? I can call that, I can do that, I can use that. And yeah, man, but I just came from Ukraine 2 years ago, and the limit that I had from my bank, from my government, it was like 10K that I can take with myself. That's all my money. Like whatever I have on top of that, I cannot transfer with me. I cannot use the bank system. I cannot do cross-border transfers because someone tells it, like they think that it's not reasonable at that moment. Of course, there could be different reason why it's not. Like in Ukraine, it's war, somewhere inflation, somewhere dictatorship, somewhere else. And these people who are living in this so-called emerging markets, like, or countries from emerging, like who is established themselves, they need all the time sacrifice just normal services that, like, it's my money, I own it, I want to transfer it, I should be able to do it. Like, and no one can tell me not to do it if you legally earn money, and there's no question to this. Same with selling apartments, same with ownership of different assets. Like, it's such a big problem, which no one actually is talking about, even for Ukraine, because Ukrainians, it's quite sensitive for us because we don't want to act in any ways that would be against the country right now. But millions of people, they are very limited in their rights right now. And the same happening with many other countries.
But that's a problem. It's not your money. It's not your property. No one owes you anything. And that's where Web3 comes in. Like, how did we normalize that a government can just print unlimited money to get rid of their debt by devaluing everyone's money? Inflation is a tax on people. You had $100, now you have $90 worth, etc. How did we normalize that the government can just take your property? For what? 40, 50, 60, 70 years, half of Europe, private property was illegal. This is Europe. The rest of the world, and this is where Web3 comes in, we cannot trust A, humans, men, women, something in between, and B, we cannot trust what you write on a fucking piece of paper that then has to be enforced by a human. That notion of corruption is so entrenched in humans that, once again, like in most developing countries, people don't even recognize that it's corruption anymore. And in most developed countries, they're too naive to even entertain it. And if you want to get an example of what I'm talking about, look at DAOs. DAOs are a joke for the most part. DAOs are a hobby project for people in the West that made too much magic money and are trying to find a way to spend their weekends with friends and family solving some problem. Every single DAO has the exact same death. Someone in a developing country that needs the money games the system, and to be honest, I think they deserve it. Because if we're so fucking stupid to set up a system in fairyland that would enable anyone to take the money, someone should take the money. Honestly, they probably need it. And I think that this message is important because, once again, we're entering into the convergence of Web3 and AI. I don't need people in Canada that I question their mental state. I don't need people in Canada to be aligned with me. If we can use a system such as Web3, where the rules are entrenched on the code, like we can trust technology, shift the trust from humans to technology. And if we can have an AI layer that enables us to have more productivity gains, more ways of digesting information, just assist humans that may be in very different places at very different times, now we're talking. Now we don't need regional leaders in each country to whatever Web3 peel people, or we don't need whatever. If we combine those two technology, we can reach that magic formula of trustless human coordination plus machines that are as efficient and smart as the best humans. Am I correct in that vision of where?
I think the tricky moment here is that people and humans in general, we're afraid to be obsolete, and we're also afraid to be machines by the end of the day and discover that we actually the same AI system that was designed by someone else. And to fight this like very core and very ground fears, we need to provide some system where people and humans can feel protected and see a way how to not to be this not needed anymore. And that's where probably our team is contributing massively to, because we're trying to design a system where like we know that AI is evolving, we know that there is a lot of progress, but also my practical experience with AI shows that it's not AGI yet, like it's still so far away from there. And to make AI really work specifically for commercial use case, for like very pragmatic use case, we need to have high quality data set. And this data right now is hidden or non-available for most domain specific use cases because people just don't have any incentive to share it. OpenAI, other guys, they just parse the internet. They took publicly available data. But if you try to think, okay, when I was looking for something, Googling something, the most situation you was Googling something which is up to date and relevant, not something that was relevant 5 years ago, or a year ago, or 6 months ago. You're not writing like search query, hey, I want to build social dApp on Near, show me something what was a year ago relevant. No, like you're not doing it. But LLMs, they're offering you something with a peak like 6-12 months.
I tried.
Google, yeah.
I tried and I failed.
And it's like, it's pretty not working approach. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to overcome the limitation of LLMs, but also we want to provide people very clear way how to contribute to AI quality and accuracy. And if you're contributing, you should be a co-owner, fractionalized co-owner of this specific small language model. And that's a basic belief that we have, because even our brain, it works that we have different brain centers, which are responsible for different activities, instead of one cell that's like super smart and going to be doing everything. So if the most powerful computers that we know, like brain, works in some way.
I know some people that only have a handful of cells, so it really is only one or two that account for most of what's going on in there, but...
When airdrop.
Oh my God. No, but I think we're getting onto the meat. I love timeline and history, and I think that you've put it brilliantly. For most people, at least early on, LLMs were enough. Let's be honest. OpenAI goes live, and that shit is fucking magic. Most people, dude, I remember being in Miami visiting my cousins for Christmas, and I showed ChatGPT for the first time to my cousin. He's a product manager. He could not believe it. I just spent 6 weeks working on this, and ChatGPT spit it out in 6 seconds. So for most people, general tasks, entry level, like there's a massive gap that we can feel with what they can do. But you've hit the nail on the head. How does it evolve? Like, where does growth come from? What happens after we've done all the entry level tasks and you really want to start getting more subject matter expertise? And very quickly you start running into the issue of, actually, there's only so much that you can do from the information that is publicly available. And all these set of problems start to get the privately available information. And yeah, I love that ability to start thinking of incentives. Okay, so can we incentivize people to provide the information by giving them something in exchange? And or how can we cater to people's concerns that they're giving the information to a big company? Because I think that if OpenAI offered to pay me to have access to all my private information, and I'm using myself as an individual, but let's say if I run a company, my company's information, if I run a government, the government's information, I would say no. To me, there's just no amount of money that it's like having a camera on your bathroom and the public being able to see you while you shit. There's a line. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how Assisterr approaches those two areas, how to incentivize people, how to cater for privacy. And maybe if you want to start getting a little bit technical, and I will ask for a 1-minute break because I left the window open and I gotta close it, it's raining. We can start getting into the difference between the large language models and the small language model and where we are at on that timeline. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I'm back.
You were super fast.
It wasn't that far. It's a small apartment.
Okay. I would say that we're at a moment of the market where everyone understands that LLMs are insanely good for many things. And first of all, they change our perception and change our beliefs that like AGI is not achievable or like really workable or like value added AI is not achievable in a short term. And many people were actually distributing this thought 5 years ago, 3 years ago. And right now we have totally different perception. Now we also see that LLMs have still some limitation, and it's like very natural that each system, each basically technology has its own limitation. And you can fight this limitation by pulling there a lot of like GPU, CPU power, a lot of investment, a lot of brains, a lot of people. But by the end of the day, you start thinking like, okay, should we just fight and try to achieve this AGI state by like trillions of dollars of investment? Or maybe there are some like other alternative ways to do it. And there is actually a couple of interesting research, including that small language models actually could be this alternative. Small language models, it's models with up to 7, maybe up to 8 billion parameters, which is comparatively much smaller than anything else that you start thinking about the large language models. So let's say Llama 2 has 70 billion parameters, while small Llama 3, it has only 8 billion parameters. But in fact, Llama 3 is even more smarter than the second one. Why? Because it was trained on more clear data, more industries, like more specific data, like where you apply different techniques, where the researchers were used step-by-step distilling mechanics. And basically there is other things that can help to achieve better quality of small model. But to work with the small language models, we have a limitation with the data. And these data sets, it's not something that publicly available everywhere. You cannot find everything about like coding on Near because you cannot get the all access to pay to all Near repositories, to all Near ecosystem, to all people's minds and private laptops, whatever they are building on Near. But on the other side, if you will find a mechanism how to incentivize these people actually to share with this data with the community, with AI model, to put it into the model data set, you can get really high quality small language models that would be capable to, let's say, build on Near. And basically that's what we're trying to achieve. And how to do it, we create our data provenance mechanisms that allowing us to track when, who, and how change or modified model data set. And based on this information, that's what we actually store in on-chain. We rewarding or penalizing these people. So the mechanics works the next way. Let's say the model is operated on the initial data set, then someone is querying it and cannot find some information. So what we're doing, we're redirecting this request to some public dashboard, which is available for people who are around this community and have industry expertise. Let's say developers who building on Near, or developer community who are around of Near, and so on. And these people start contributing some additional data sets in very similar way as Stack Exchange Stack Overflow works. So you see that you can fix something on, you see that you can create additional documentation, or you have maybe some repository which contains the solution for this specific feature. You can submit, share, and other people who act as validators, they can validate the quality of different proposed solution. The best solutions that will collect the most upvotes or the most stars, whatever you call it, it would be fed back to the model. And these people who validate it and these people who submit this response, they will get reward. But not only one-time transaction, because if you will just design one-time transaction, you creating gig markets for people who just want to get, I don't know, 20, 30, $50 per hour and like by responding to some questions. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to make these people somehow fractionalized co-owner of this model. And each time when someone would be querying in the future this model, is it people or is it agents? These people should get some portion of the reward that this model going to be accumulated. So behind each model, we design in treasury. And in the future, let's say, I don't know, 1,000 queries per day. We're charging 10 tokens per query. There is 10,000 tokens per accumulated. So this 10,000 tokens going to be distributed between these people actively were feeding model and also who actively were participating into validation of the quality of this data set. So that's our core belief that you cannot establish long-term competitive advantage on the small language models without community. And the role of the community shouldn't be linked at only one-time transaction, but it should be lifelong interest and alignment about, okay, we're going to be keeping this small language model about niche specific or like subject specific task or expertise for as long as we can. We would be feeding there some additional data sets on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and we're going to be sharing profit. So in the long term, we expect that there would be app store, kind of app store we see it in our vision, that it would be app store with small language models, where each small language model is owned by a community of contributor. So you don't need to be engineer, you don't need to do a lot of other too complex things, expert in AI, storage, whatever else. You need to have data. And the core, like the high level narratives that we are pushing is that own your data, own AI, own the future.
That's hot. I like it. Oh, that's crazy. Okay. And at the moment, Assisterr is focusing, like the niche area for the content is programming languages for different blockchain networks. Is that correct?
So what we did initially, we started over the bear market. That was a life-changing experience for us because we passed this period of almost a year, basically, when everyone, even like Web3 fan, Web3 builders, like whole industry was saying like, Web3 is dead. Guys, you need to left this space, like there would be no builders anymore and so on. So it was quite depressed period of our life, but it pushed us to focus and find very specific niche where we can use the technology and where we can showcase that it worked and it actually can generate revenue. So we start with a DevRel use case because my background as a head of ecosystem growth, I was responsible for onboarding developers, providing support, writing tech documentation, and many other things. And all protocols that exist in the space right now, they're doing it all manually. And it's so just not smart approach. Like in 2024, support people through Discord messages, direct messages, emails, some forums, and it shouldn't be that way. And there is zero analytic layer, what actually people are looking for, what they're trying to build, how they interact with your documentation, where they have a problem. So there's no insights about this in the space. So we started thinking about this use case and how we can actually train AI model around this use case to be valuable. And we established the end-to-end pipeline where we take open source, publicly available data from the protocols. We train custom model based on this documentation, tag-based, blog posts, whatever, history, support ticket, and then can act as junior DevRel, you can call it, collect all the insights about where is your community experience problem, which type of documentation cannot be found. Because if the model cannot provide support automatically, we creating these tickets, we have it implemented, and the ticket can be analyzed, and we generate additional insight. Hey, we see that over the last week, there was 50% of requests about, I don't know, Python SDK, let's say, and the type of integration. We recommend you either to improve existing tech documentation if you already have it, or we recommend you to prioritize this feature for your community because it's something that often queried over the last period, and we see that it's gaining traction, gaining more interest, and you're just losing your developer community because they will switch to other chain. And many research actually shows that even if we didn't end up in multi-chain, like cross-chain environment, we end up that developers become cross-chain. So on average, they are developing on 2.8 protocols at this point of time, which means if this protocol doesn't have something, they would just simply switch to another protocol because the solution is there. And this type of insights were quite interesting for many DevRel teams. Right now, at the moment, we have 25 live integrations already. We have 25 that are going to come in the next 2 weeks and going to be publicly available in our store. And yeah, like it starts generating us revenue, which is super rare stuff for any Web3 related project in the space. So we have this different perspective just because we started with the bear market and we believe that we need to prove that it works. And what we are doing right now, it's also very interesting because like the use case that we have is quite limited in terms of the like app store vision that I just shared. But we can be promoting that, hey guys, we built one use case and we already get 100K and we have 1 million plus in our sales pipeline in potential revenue. Whoever will join us with its own small language model category, with your own data, with your models and so on, you're going to be like having the whole direction where you can capture momentum and be one of the first small language models, AI first application. So imagine that you are joining App Store in this first months of the launch, like you would have such huge advantage over any other folks who will join in 5-10 years. So that's the approach, and we're going to be promoting massively in the community. Hey, do X, Y, Z, and you will get like that, and we can help you with this. And we already have 100,000 people who already can be users of what you are building.
I actually registered for the demo thingy. And I can see by economy, ZK Sync, Wormhole, Sui, Solana, Scroll, Particle Network, Optimism, Fuse L2, or Morph L2, Monad, Linea, IO, Eclipse, Corium, Avalanche, API 3. And if you keep going, there's Near towards the end. That's awesome. I like that.
You prioritize Near there, but yeah. We actually had a really good relationship with Near initially because we were part of Near Horizon program. Then we won Near AGI hackathon run at Denver, near Bounty.
Nice. Oh, you won. Congratulations.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool. So I really like what is going on in Near in terms of AI Web3 direction. And yeah, it could be very interesting in the future.
We'll get into Near AI in just a minute. I wanted to say, it's called Wild User Interviews. We can open source this user interview. It is 100% correct that after I signed up for the testnet account, seeing these networks, I picked the Particle Network agent, and I just started talking to it because I've seen Particle Protocol on Twitter and I'm vaguely familiar, but there's definitely an opportunity. I would count it as a go-to-market opportunity for all this protocol. Be there. You have users that are already primed to ask questions or to take action. And yeah, I just think you should put Near towards the beginning. Before we dive into me giving you product advice, I'm curious if you could help me, like at a technical level, have a bit of a who is who, almost like a mind map. So we've established the source of the data. It can be either public on the internet or private. And we're creating some incentives for people to provide it, if it's traditionally being private. Can you help me understand a little bit more around how the small language models work? Like what is inference? Where is the computing happening? Reinforcement learning. I think there's a few of these terms that I've seen thrown around, synthetic data. And I'm just curious to see how they all fit together in this specific, in your specific model to make it work in that outsourced way.
Right now, what we're doing, we're taking, we have several stages that we're going to be going through. The first stage, we're just collecting the data, which is publicly available. And we're using vector databases as the AI native way to store the data and make it publicly available. Because there is a big research about the RAG process, actually making the LLMs or
what does
any
RAG
AI
stand
model.
For?
So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's giving access for LLMs or models to additional data sets provided by anyone. It actually can be internal documentation from the protocols. It can be internal documentation from enterprise level clients, from businesses, my personal information, whatever I have as data, I can give this access for model in specific environment, specific approach. And this model become much smarter because it has exposure to relevant data instead of relying on the data that it was trained like 6 months ago, 12 months. And it already gives a lot of good ability. I can share some graphs with you later on if you would be interested. But there's like really good research. Let me just make a note about it. I will share Pinecone, which is a vector database actually provider. They did very good research that shows that initial basic models, they can be 2 up to 3 times different in terms of accuracy. But as soon as you add in the RAG process to them and making them searchable so they can get exposure to additional documentation, they become equal. So the difference is like 2-3% in terms of accuracy, which is nothing because some model you spend in hundreds of millions of dollars or billions to train. And if you can achieve the same approximately quality with difference 2-3% by using some open source model or small language model, it just makes sense. And it's mind blowing because it saves so much money, much more efficient and so on. So what we are doing, we establishing this vector database, then we empowering this RAG process, then we play it with different small language models, but we also we can use LLMs, we can use small language models, we can use some open source models, whatever exists in the market. And then what we track, if something is missing in the model, we asking people to feed additional data and we doing vector embeddings to the vector database. In that way, we like constantly improving the knowledge base behind the model. And at some point of time, when we will collect enough data, our goal would be to fine tune this model for niche specific tasks. And with the fine tuning of small language models, there could be also different scenarios how to do it, but we need to have more data set. We need to have something to work with. Right now we have, for example, one use case where we like playing with proof of concepts. We met guys from Australia and they're excited. They have organizations that united up to 100 lawyers, legal agencies in Australia. And the use case is they have very small amount of data, which makes no sense for them to fine tune the model for each of them because it's quite expensive. It can be tens of thousands of dollars. While if they collect all the data, if they establish the initial data set by using our technology, then they can do a fine tuning based on all this data set, like maybe once per half year, maybe once per quarter, maybe once per year. It depends like what would be the use case and where we will see it's reasonable to do. So that's how it works. And very important part that we give into this process, like first, like end-to-end infrastructure where we're empowering this like infrastructure part with feeding data, establishing, connecting all dots, connecting all players into one place. Second, we provide an agent layer, which is basically in our terminology, like everyone calls it agents, but in fact it's different UI interfaces that still connected to some AI model. So we connect our agent to these small language models, and it can be web widget, it can be Discord, Telegram, different conversational chatbots, and so on. And it also can be used from the box. So in 2-3 minutes, we can establish it and start using. And then we have a very important part with the reward, where we tracking who, when, and how modified the model data set, storing this data on chain. And as soon as we store it, we can verify then later which exactly data was used to provide a query response. And we can reward the people accordingly, because right now most system is you submitting some data and there is some black box what happening inside. And then somehow who defining like you're gonna get 1 token, I'm gonna have 10 token. Why? I don't know, just we end up with it. What we are doing, we're also trying to, based on the vectors that were used to provide the specific query response, we can incentivize you more than me if we see that your data was used more. But like, let's use an example. Let's say there are 10 people who feed the data to a specific model. What we can do, and one of them feeded 50% of this data, another feeded just 1% of data. But this guy who submitted 1% of data, his data was used in 90% of responses. So it like high quality data set. So this guy should get the most reward. And we can make it possible, while anything else what exists on the market, they just don't support this functionality. So for many organizations, many people who want fair reward distribution, who want to get the most out of their data, they're going to be relying on solution like we are building.
That's awesome. If I had to summarize it and to see that I'm understanding correctly, so you can start with some other small language model like Llama, like Mini Llama or something. And then with the RAG process, you're able to start injecting custom data to make it perform better or smarter. And RAG would be the step before, what was the word that you used? Fine-tuning.
So right now,
Changes the base model itself. RAG just makes the model work with a specific set of data. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. But like just fine tuning, it's quite expensive. That's why it doesn't make sense to start with that immediately. So we had a lot of internal R&D and we discussing it a lot. If you try to start with fine tuning, you need to secure a lot of money from ventures. Yeah. And then the question would be like, how often you can actually fine tune the model if like where it remains specific. If it's model about, let's say, B2C marketing in Australia, is there so much data on a daily basis or weekly basis to fine tune and make it actually commercially valuable that someone would be paying for it? Because if you will be fine tuning it, someone should pay pretty big money for it. While with the RAG process, you can achieve so much more efficiently. You can update the model on each 5-minute time frame. So it's every 5 to even 3 minutes can be updated. And the next person who would be asking the question would be getting the response based on new data sets that already was fitted, like new embeddings that we just get. And that's why we just like, we're a startup, we're running in this very flexible environment. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. But at some point of time, as soon as we will secured a lot of data, the fine tuning can be the answer and solution.
That's why terminology is important. Like usually when people think of a use case where a model could be optimized to a specific use case, they may go to creating their own model or to fine tune a model, but those are like massive tasks. So I think that the RAG model and the way that you do it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm going to give you one case study or use case, and maybe we can run through how it may work or how it works now. I'm going to say it, and then we're going to have a toilet break. You're going to have a couple of minutes to think about it, and then we'll come back. So I have attended this year, actually, it's Denver, it's Global London, it's Seoul, it's Global Sydney, and I'm about to attend it's Global Brussels. I love hackathons. I've actually started learning a bit of Solidity. I started working with Scaffold. I find that there's very useful projects out there. Dev Cookbook, I think it's called. One of the things that I find fascinating is that every single entry for every ETH Global hackathon is available on the ETH Global website. So for instance, if you and I wanted to hack at Brussels and we want to win, it's the same sponsors, it's mostly the same challenges. We can go and see what everyone's already hacked on this year, learn how they've done what they've done, and we go in with at least a lot of prior knowledge. And we can just come up with a cool idea. So what I'm thinking is, how could we fit into the Assisterr framework all that past hackathon data and all the past hackathon bounty sponsor data? Especially if we were to think of maybe information that is not publicly available, maybe let's try to think of ways in which bounty sponsors could actually provide feedback for the hackathon entry into the model. So information that may have been one-on-one private learnings, even about the quality of the idea or the implementation, are now fed into the model.
It's really cool. I like it.
I'll take on advisor role anytime.
I like the idea that it's very practically valuable, because even knowing that you can do it, not something that is obvious for many projects. So everyone is trying to create this new wheel and things that no one was thinking about it before. So it's already value-added stuff, which just logically makes sense, and it's something that would add a lot to the ecosystem and to other builders, and also for bounty sponsors as well, because I think that it's quite annoying when you constantly need to respond to the same question or iterate the same ideas again and again. So that's very similar to what we were resolving on a DevRel, because on a DevRel use case, you basically have a repeatable question. They are all pretty similar. Like people are using different words, but they asking about the same stuff. But sometimes they are lazy. They just don't want to go to read. Or second, they just don't know where to go to read. So it's exactly the same. So if you will just think and find a parallel, so it sounds very reasonable for me. So where we can start with this, so basically we can establish, and we need to take all the information and like to put it into the same file format from the previous hackathons, collect as much as we can, like code base, project description, whatever they have, even videos we can transcript, and like demo videos we can transcript and make it a text base as well. So it would be easier just to work with that in one single format. Then if you want, we have our own data models that help us to structure this data, clean, pre-process, enrich with the context if something is missed. Most likely with this data, there would be a lot of missing information because people who are on hackathons, they are not trying to make it perfectly, put in the explanation to code and all other things. So this model will help a lot to clean and pre-process data. Then we can launch SETs, try to ask questions about different use cases that was historically already there and should be fine. See if it works. If something doesn't work well, we can have another human in the loop process to iterate this to achieve better quality. Then right now we have a dashboard not publicly deployed on this community incentive portal on a marketplace, but shortly we're going to be deploying and make it publicly available. So standalone, it would be already a model owned by community because it's community data, and where people who participated in other hackathon and winning hackathons, they can contribute the data to this model, improving the accuracy and helping to support this model and become like some kind of co-owner of this model. For other people, we can put or remove a role. It's something also up to these people who would be launching this model. If you want to charge some small amount of tokens, and this token can be redirected in some public good or funding some additional tracks from hackathons or whatever. In terms of how to incentivize people, additionally, we can put there some social leaderboard where we have these projects that are participating here, and also exact people who are feeding the data into this model. And what else from our functionalities that we can do? Like, it's a question like how to monetize or not monetize this model, because like it's social good. So the direct monetization, I don't see.
Yeah, everything can be monetized.
You think it can be monetized?
Oh, for sure. My perspective, I was alongside the DevRel team for Earth Global London. Sponsor pay an astronomical amount of money to be a sponsor and to have a table with some DevRels there. And then you have pretty sizable prices. Could range anywhere between 10 and 50,000 depending on the project and the hackathon. So the willingness to invest in the experience is there. Like, where does the value come from? Each developer that you acquire has a huge value, and each project that lives beyond the hackathon has a huge value. You could then look at metrics like developer retention, external capital raised, etc. Even if you look at the success story, Alton now, who just left the Near Foundation to work on Nuffle, he was recruited through one of the hackathons at NearCon or something. The problem that I see is hackathons value decrease if people show up and on that weekend, it's the first time that they have their hands on the tool. Because they got to learn a lot of stuff, they cut a lot of corners, they're very limited with ideas because they got to keep it simple. It's only 48 hours. I think that the more information that you give people ahead of time, or the more tools that you could give them that will enable them to build better products, the better. But in my eyes, there could be these, almost like a product manager, or like whatever, this model where teams can talk to and understand what's been done before, how to do it, etc. Just like really go deep faster. It could also allow the teams to give feedback to the bounty sponsors. Like I've seen a lot of people, like there was a team in London that gave us like 7 pages worth of feedback. Hey, your documentation is shit. We got stuck here. We wrote this entire new thing, etc. So just being able to capture all that is amazing and relay it to the right people. The feedback from the DevRels themselves as they assess project and hand out prices. And maybe even there could be like an open category where, say, I look at your project and I'm like, hey, this is a cool project, but like your description is shit, or like your demo is shit. You could even have people contributing data back to the model saying, hey, this is how you would improve this presentation or whatever. Like it can just, it's got so many different sources of data that if you were to spin it, to me, the very clear definable outcome would be, can we have hackathons where in 1 year time, there's real fucking solid product coming out of it? Let's skip all the beginner bullshit. Let's keep all the same repetitive basic ideas and just like supercharge people into the leading frontier of what the technology can do.
You see, like,
Are you down?
Ideal state where I would love to see it, and after this, like, years of building, I would love to have the hackathon where I come in to the spot, I get in like list of 10 ideas that everyone is excited about, and like tomorrow I'm gonna be funded if I will build something in this direction. But it's quite complicated because in that way, you need to believe that these guys who are giving you these ideas, they also understand what market needs, and if there would be users, if there would be customers and so on, which is often not true. Like many protocols and many of the sponsors, they have so many different like motivation why they are there. And it's not all the time true that they are looking the best talents or they are looking the best projects to get to the ecosystem. Sometimes they just like, that's a part of our marketing budgets, our marketing strategy. And we just like doing it because at the beginning of the year, we just craft the budget for this direction and that's it. And it's also true. However, from the builder perspective, I really like this idea because I would love to have something like this that is working and that can save me a lot of time. The question is, it requires a lot of iteration. I would love to have this kind of a tool built by using and integrated with Assisterr. So if you would be interested to keep this idea running, we definitely can help you with infra and with basic stuff. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, Nick, I'm mindful of your time. Yeah. I noticed that the current testnet is on Salami. It's on Solana. And
like we didn't actually use any, sorry, I will turn the camera just for 1 minute. Can we make a pause? Because I need a charger. Otherwise, my laptop will die in a couple minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
I just found that.
No worries. I get the charger.